Welcome back, everybody, to Trade Talk. This is episode 12. I'm your host, Niko. Thanks for tuning back in, all you listeners that check back week to week. And if you're a new listener, welcome. I read. I'm going to talk about 3 different books that I read over this past week today. First up, we got The Lone Ranger, The Devil's Rope. It's a trade paperback collecting 5 issues of this, I guess, mini-series of The Lone Ranger that Mark Russell wrote, and art by Bob Q. Now, the art by Bob Q, I'm actually new to Bob Q. I heard he was drawing another James Bond origin book, basically that was coming out at the same time as this. I gotta say, I like his cartooning. It's not bad. It's especially for Dynamite, who is historically worked with some pretty bad artists, at least from what I've seen. It looks it's pretty good. I'm just looking for the right way to describe it. It's very cartoony looking, definitely clean lined. Not a lot of lines used in his line work, it looks like. He's just got a nice, clean, good-looking style. And, like I said, and everybody kind of looks a little bit cartoony, and that's why, I guess I used the name cartoonist as opposed to artist there. So, it kind of, the expressions look good on the characters. The storytelling is down. Definitely a good artist for Dynamite. And I didn't read the James Bond origin book, but I heard that was pretty good. And so I would have to check his art out over there, because I would think he would lend himself to do a pretty good James Bond story. I've never read a Lone Ranger comic. I basically picked this up because of Mark Russell. I love Mark Russell. I love his work. I think that he's an interesting voice to have in comics. Not really known as a comic dude even before doing comics, so I think that he, for books he did, he wrote Flintstones. If you guys have never read that, and believe me, it sounds weird to suggest that you should read a Flintstones comic, but it was this interesting book where he just did kind of these scathing kind of looks and on society, and it was basically him doing a lot of social commentary on a lot of different topics, but just basically using the Flintstones as the way to do that, as the mouthpiece and the backdrop to kind of him commenting on a bunch of things, from anything from religion to how we treat vets, things like that, it just kind of it was just opened up my eyes to his writings. It was just so surprising. I'd heard about it at first. I was like, the Flintstones book. I was like, okay, I'll check it out. And I really ended up enjoying that quite a bit. So I've been following his work ever since. And he wrote that, and he wrote the Snagglepuss Chronicles, another Hanna-Barbera book. And they kind of started. Now DC is giving him kind of one shots here and there. And he's been writing a couple of miniseries over at Dynamite. He wrote this. He wrote a Red Sonja book, which I'm also going to check out. I just think he's got an interesting. He's writing this book, Second Coming. I guess that got dropped from Vertigo and now is coming out from another publisher, which I'm going to check out when it's collected. He's an interesting voice, I think, in comics, and my favorite thing he does is basically social commentary and stuff, and basically his wit and his like I said, kind of just scathing looks at different topics, and the way he kind of articulates them, it's something that I think Garth Ennis is pretty good at doing as well. He definitely taps into that. He has I wouldn't say this is dark humor as Garth Ennis has written certain things, but he definitely he's in that same school. I think his books are humorous as well. They take humorous looks at things. But anyways, back to the comic. That's just not my opinion and thoughts on Mark Russell. If you're not familiar with his work, though, definitely check it out. That's the only reason I picked this book up. I've never read a Lone Ranger book, nor have I had any interest to read a Lone Ranger book. But in my history with the characters, not not big. I don't even think I've seen the new movie that came out a few years ago, the Johnny Depp one. I don't believe I ever even watched that. But I'm aware of Lone Ranger, like I know about it. But yeah, this was fun. This was very fun. It basically, it's him and Tonto, and they get involved in this adventure in Texas. Um, and like they get wronged by these townsfolk, like wrongfully accused, I guess, as they're known to do, because one of them's, I guess, a native Indian at that time. So there's a lot of like racism going on during that period, which they kind of touch on, and also the Lone Ranger is basically looked at. He's like a bounty hunter of sorts. Like he's not really trusted or respected either, and so basically these two guys, they kind of get caught up in this scheme of somebody in the town, and they're caught in the middle of it. And there's this bad dude that's basically like a cannibal that also feels like a Garth Ennis type bad guy character, and there's some really good dialogue in the book, and basically it comes to a head at the end, and everything kind of unravels itself, and the bad guys get screwed over. Tano and Lone Ranger, save the day. They get off. They screw over the bad guys essentially, and yeah, I mean it's basic and formulaic and what I guess you would maybe expect from a Lone Ranger comic. Although I've never, like I said, read this, but it kind of feels like it takes place definitely in like. It is a Western, so it did read that way, and yeah, it's just like a kind of little fun little adventure with these characters, and I enjoyed it. Wasn't bad. I mean, I would check this out if you're a fan of the Lone Ranger, definitely, but if you're more so a fan of Mark Russell, I definitely check this out, because I think it was just interesting if you're a fan of his writing, and definitely something different that I haven't seen him approach. It wasn't like his other stuff in the sense like there was very little social commentary in it. It was played down. It felt like for him to write a very basic Lone Ranger story, and so I'm not sure if he's got a history with the property, if that's what Dynamite wanted from him, or if that's just the direction he decided to go. But yeah, I don't think it was anything outside the box. I mean, there was definitely some interesting elements, like I said, cannibal fucking bad guy and but then you got your rich group of scheming white older men in this back in Western times, that makes very much sense to me, and seems like they would fit in that time era and period. So yeah, I had no problem with it. I just wouldn't say run out and buy this right away. You can do without, but there was nothing wrong with it at all. I did end up enjoying it, and it was a fun little read. So yeah, Lone Ranger, The Devil's Rope. Like I said, if you're a fan of the character or of Mark Russell's writing, it's worth checking out. Next up, we got Frog Catchers by Jeff Lemire. This is his new original graphic novel that just came out this past week. It's published by Gallery 13, which I guess he also published Roughneck out of, which is a book company more for the direct market, essentially. So he's brought out his last two original graphic novels through them. More so, this is something you'd see in the bookstores more. So it's Simon and Schuster, the book company, is basically this the company that owns this imprint of Gallery 13 Comics. I guess it's their comic imprint. So this is definitely going to get more eyes on it as a result of that branding, probably, than maybe if it came out from like a DC Comics or a Marvel Comics. At least in bookstores. Although bookstores now, they all have comic sections as well too, and libraries do right by the comics market as well lately, from what I've heard. So and then seen a bit of. So yeah. So it's interesting that he's been bringing stuff out through them. But I enjoyed Roughneck. That was the last one he did. Through Gallery 13, and I enjoyed Frog Catchers as well. This is definitely one of the lighter works, I would say, not in tone, we'll get to that, of Jeff Lemire's. It's not a very big original graphic novel first off. I'm just trying to look at the page count here. I can't find it, but I can't see this being more than like 80 pages. Definitely within the 80 to 100 page range, and it reads very quick. Like, I read this in one sitting. And the art is definitely the loosest Lemire I've seen in some time. I mean, Lemire, some people aren't fans of his artwork. I, for one, am. I really do enjoy his artwork, but he definitely has it down to, like, the guy's a busy fucking guy. He writes so many goddamn books and is an artist and finds time to do original graphic novels in between all that. So, like, you could tell he cranked these pages out at a fast pace. He's definitely got a style down now that lends itself to him not, perfecting. Like, he's not a crazy draftsman. He does a lot of stuff where he does loose pencils and one watercolor over it, and that's essentially what this is. But, even so, I think some of his pencil work normally is a little tighter than it looked in this. This is definitely, I don't want to say rushed, but he definitely threw it down and kept moving. Like, didn't stress over anything that basically was hitting the page. Yeah, it's good looking still, and he also, like, this is basically loose pencils and then watercolor over top of it. Most of the book is actually done in black and white, essentially. It just seems like he just used the watercolor essence to shade the backgrounds or certain things in the scenes. There's some color in a few pages, but otherwise, yeah, it looks even kind of like charcoal. Like, the texture of it makes it look like he maybe used charcoal or because there's some black shading going on that fills in a lot of the white on the page that was left, and then behind that for the backgrounds, he's kind of got like a more of a he definitely threw down some watercolor to kind of give it some depth, and yeah, it's an interesting different look for Lemire, because even then, you when he does the watercolors, you definitely, if he is working with a colorist, you got to color in, or if he's doing some of his other watercolor work, he usually does brighter tones. But most of this is done in this style, like, it's either charcoal or even like a black, like, pencil crayon type of pencil that he's using. And just the shading even seems a little, like, kind of rushed through, but it just in the, again, not because I think that it's sloppy and that he didn't take his time on it, but just more so he doesn't he's not stressing over how everything looks in that, and, like, he's just throwing it down all on the page, and that's the good thing about him. He's found a comfortability in his art and his style to allow himself to do that, and you still know everything that you're looking at, and you still you can or don't have to appreciate his art in that sense, because of the approach that he takes. But I think that once you've reached that level of comfortability, your art actually gets better, because you know what you need to do to convey the storytelling and still get away with it. And just because he's got a more simplistic style, he knows how to do all these different kind of mediums. Like, he does great watercolor work. He does, you know what I mean? Like, he can do loose pencils, like, not but you're not gonna sit there and look at the page and look at all the detail and look at all the intricacy and all the line work that went into it, and like some of these guys do, these draftsmen. Like, it's not like he's a Jim Lee or something like that, right? So yeah, that's what I mean. I'm trying to describe, just because his art style is very different, and you may not be a fan, or you may be a fan of it, like I am, a big fan of it, and you just kind of got to know that if you're new to his work, that it's his storytelling is always top notch. He does a great job of storytelling, and that's all you kind of need to tell a good story, in my opinion. Now, the book is called Frog Catchers because it shows the main character of the book through these flashback sequences of him when he was a kid, catching frogs, like, under a bridge in the water in, like, a Tupperware. And then there's this man who you get the sense because you see some sort of like medical equipment, an IV, like set up in the water as he's looking for the frogs, and then you're like, you're kind of confused at first, like what the hell is going on, and then you basically find out, as this story progresses, what a lot of this symbolism and things that this kid is seeing means. And then you find out that this is basically just somebody having flashbacks to when they were a kid. And I'm not going to completely spoil what's going on here, but it is kind of, it's got definitely, it's dark. Like, it's never... it's kind of looming overhead, this whole novel. Like, there is something bad that's going on with one of the characters, and it's kind of bleak, definitely. I mean, this is a story where you don't really know what's going on. It's kind of like a dream sequence throughout the whole thing, and then when it gets to the end, you kind of figure out what's been happening, although I kind of figured it out about halfway through. And it's just one of those things where, like, it seems like it's a nicer told story that's happening, but then, Lemire in that fashion kind of pulls on the heartstrings, and he's kind of like, oh yeah, having a good time here, but it turns out this is what's really going on, right? So, and then you're kind of like, oh, okay, well, screw you then. You made me feel really bad about myself and these characters. So, it's interesting. I definitely think he's done better. But if you're a fan of his work, like a lot of people are, and I'm a huge fan of his work, it's a Jeff Lemire original graphic novel. I mean, I'm not going to check it out. I'm not going to read it and not enjoy it. I did enjoy it. I thought it was good. But it's definitely a nice little project as an aside to some of his other big graphic novels. Like, it's no Essex County. Even Roughneck, I think, was a bigger, better book. This kind of pales in comparison to some of those things. I just think it's a nice little thing that he was able to fit in between other projects. And, it's nothing I would say that we have not seen from Lemire, but if you're a Lemire fan, you would appreciate it and enjoy it. It's a nice little story with new Jeff Lemire art. And definitely in that vein of kind of touching subjects, and makes you think, it makes you kind of appreciate life, so and the finer things. And so that's basically why it's called Frog Catchers, without giving the whole book away, although I'm sure you could read between the lines of what I said there and find out basically what's going on. It's not one of those books that it's like a huge reveal. Like I said, I figured it out fairly early in the book, but, it's not what it seems. That's for sure. All right, so, and then last up, we got Batman Damned. This is the book with the infamous Batcock. This is, I guess was I think it was DC Black Label's first announced book. It's kind of got a bigger, almost like I wouldn't say European kind of size with their comics. Like some of the graphic albums they do are bigger and longer, like in width. And this is similar to that, but I wouldn't say it's as large as some of those European style graphic books. But it's a longer width. Like almost like magazine size, but a little bit longer in width and height. It's like basically the size of like a omnibus, like an oversized hardcover. So it's a nice looking book if you're a fan of Lee Bermejo's art, and he did. I'm not a huge Lee Bermejo fan. I think he's all right. I mean, my favorite thing he's probably done was the Joker story that Brian Azzarello and him did, which by the end of this, in like the kind of sign off from the writers, I guess Brian Azzarello wrote a letter at the end of this that I read, and he says it in an extended way, in a sense, like this story takes place in the same universe as that Joker story, like their interpretation of the Joker and Batman in this world. And you see Joker by the end of this, and I could say he looks exactly like the Lee Bermejo Joker from Joker, so I can understand how that could be the case. whether or not it's clear during the story, or I'll let you be the judge if you feel like this is actually takes place in the same kind of universe of that him and Lee had done. But man, the dialogue in this book sucked. I mean, I like Brian Azzarello. I don't like everything he always does. He definitely takes chances, and not to say that I think he just really has to be interested in the work, and I don't know if he is most of the time, and or if he tries to bring his A game. I think a lot of the problems with Brian Azzarello is nothing to do with plotting or like storytelling. I guess storytelling in a sense, but this is dialogue. It's just he always does like these witty kind of like lines from characters that sometimes just come off sounding cheesy, and in this book, this fucking damn book, it's just like I don't know what the fuck he was doing in this book with the dialogue. It just read so shit, and it's like a fever dream the whole way through, of Batman basically going through like all the supernatural characters in the DCU. Like on paper, like there were some great looking scenes here that Lemire drew, and in this oversized format of this hardcover, they looked great. Like I did appreciate a bunch of the scenes. His Swamp Thing, there's a Swamp Thing sequence in this, which is amazing looking. I mean, like, Lee Bermejo, again, I don't think he's a bad artist. It's just not my favorite style, and I've just never, gravitated towards his stuff or, like, raved about it. But I can't say that he didn't do a good job on this, because there's several different sequences in this that look great reading this. But the dialogue and just, like, the storytelling that was going on in this particular book just made it for a really, really shitty experience. Like, it got like a lot of praise, this book, when it came out, because in the first issue they said that Batman, you see his dick, like it's like a big deal because it was the first time it was depicted in comics, and everyone went crazy, and the issue fucking skyrocketed on the aftermarket. Like, people were selling it for hundreds of dollars and getting it slabbed, CGC'd, and this bullshit. I didn't really buy into that hype. I was just more like, hey, this is a Batman story written by Azzarello, I'll check it out when it's collected. I was more into it for that. And then in this actual edition, they went out of their way, and we knew this months ago when after the first issue came out, they said if this is reprinted, we're never reprinting. I think even on reprintings of that first issue, they said, well, we're not reprinting the scene where he showed, like, his dick is showing, and basically now you see him naked, you see his ass from like behind, like a shot of his naked bare ass, but then the scene, the panel that's him in the front, where it's just all basically shadowed, whereas like dick and balls would be, and you don't actually see it in the panel in the book. And it's just odd to me, because if they thought that was an artistic choice, or they even thought it was risque, and it obviously worked because it maybe got a lot of attention on the book at the time. And Azzarello is the type of guy to fucking poke the bear. He loves fucking around like that. It seems like he's been attached to other kind of controversial kind of things in books before, whether or not it was on purpose or not, I don't know. It just seems like he's that type of dude to be like, fuck you. But and I don't know. It's not a big deal for me. I don't care whether or not it was in there. But I'm like, if you're gonna do a mature content label, which is what DC's Black Label was first announced as well as to have interesting creators do out of continuity type stories over there. Like, I don't know why they wouldn't just fucking leave it. Like, so it doesn't make sense to me, like, to announce that and make that announcement and then basically remove it from all publication after the fact. I mean, like, it's, what's the fucking big deal? We've seen nudity in comics before. Like, what? It's because it's Batman? Like, we're supposed to think he doesn't have genitals? Like, it's just a very strange move, and I don't understand why they would have removed it. But again, it doesn't change nothing for me in this particular story. It doesn't weigh in on it at all. It doesn't fucking matter. But, and I wanted to like this a lot, because, like, he goes through this kind of, like, you think he's dead, and then there's all this fucked up shit going on, and by the end of it, you don't even know what the fuck you just read, because between the crappy fucking almost trying to be poetic like dialogue that's going on, but it's just really badly structured, and storytelling of him basically just running into a bunch of different supernatural characters in the DCU, like Swamp Thing's in this, Constantine's in this, Satana's in this, and then you see some of Batman's rogues, like you see, Joker appears in it. And then the thing that pissed me off the most, that really, really pissed me off, and I'm a huge Etrigan fan, the demon. Great character. I mean, one of Jack Kirby's creations, and from back in the day. And whenever he shows up in things, I really enjoy it. Garth Ennis, actually, we were speaking about him earlier. He had a really fun run back in the '90s of him with John McCrae art. And I'm a big fan of the demon character, Etrigan. And in this, he got reimagined as a black, and again, it doesn't matter that he's black, just putting it out there that he was a black rapper character, like depicted as essentially this guy who's freestyling, because Etrigan rhymes in some of the versions of Etrigan, and so they thought it would be interesting if he went to basically this underground club and to question like Etrigan, and as when he came across him, he's like a thug, like rapper guy, a gangster rapper who's rhyming on stage, essentially freestyling, and that's how they chose to depict Etrigan in this. And I think it's really fucking stupid, and I'm a fan of rap music. I listen to rap, like that's like my main genre of music, like in hip hop, that I listen to. So you would think if a character is reimagined like this, I may be into the take on it, but this I was not. I would just like, no, I was not having it. I was just like, it just rubbed me the wrong way. I was like, oh no, this is not good. After that, I was pretty much done with it. After that scene in particular, I was like, yeah, I never plan on rereading this again. That was like, I think in the second issue out of 3 oversized issues that this book collects. Anyways, I just thought it was a really poor choice. If you're gonna do an interesting take on somebody, that was not the one to do. And yeah, I mean, you get to see him write Constantine again. I was a huge fan of his Hellblazer run, Azzarello. I think he's definitely one of more of the underrated runs, because he's sandwiched in between like some of the greatest runs on the character. But it was interesting. He has his dialogue down, and I thought that was done well. It's just and some good art sequences, but just at the end it just fell flat. It was pointless. Really bad dialogue throughout. And no bat penis, so that's why I'm really hating on this book. Yeah, this was not good. I mean, this is you guys, if you've been listening to this show, I don't needlessly bash books if they don't deserve it. I don't go out of my way to shit all over something, but I'll always be honest with you guys, and this is not one that I think that you should read nor check out. I'm gonna be selling my copy to a used bookstore, so I don't even want to sell this to somebody else. Like, I don't even want to put it up for trade or anything like that. Just like the internet or whatever. I just it was not good. So save yourself the trouble and don't buy it. I mean, it was a $30 retail book. I didn't pay that much for it, but it's definitely not worth you checking out. There's way more better Batman stories, and so many of them, that you shouldn't waste your time with this one. All right, so that's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Sorry to leave on such a downer of a book there, but that's just the way it worked out. And I'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks.